Hey everyone, thank you for joining me again. This is going to be part two of my anonymous guest conversation between he and I. We were talking about the amygdala part of the brain and its effect or its regulation of or misregulation of the fight or flight response that's triggered by being around the narcopath for long periods of time. That it's not just PTSD, but it's CPTSD, or the complex post traumatic stress disorder, and that you can be cured from it. So, we had about a 2 hour conversation. This is the second and final hour of that. And with that, I guess let's just take a look at it and see. And I hope to see y'all again real soon. Thanks. Go ahead when you're ready.
Perfect. That sounds great to me. Can you hear me okay on your side stuff?
I can hear you fine. Sounds great.
Perfect. Okay, then we're gonna go for it. Let me know if my mic starts messing out or something, and we'll do
I
something.
will. Will do. Okay. It sounds like I think we nailed it right now. Sounds good. So.
That's awesome. So yes, one thing we wanted to talk about is complex PTSD. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Uh, the main thing that we're going to be dealing with is what are the steps that we need to do to start just to heal from this. And I already talked about how you have to be in a good environment. You have to be around good people really helps, even if they are narcissistic, like narcissist abuse survivors. It's still a really important thing to do. It's important that when dealing with complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, the way I saw it is it was like quicksand, where you would lose all the ground beneath you, and it's like you're falling. And while that's happening, that's triggering your fear or flight response. It's triggering the amygdala, because the narcissist is going to mess with that part of your brain. It gets enlarged, and that part is a part of your fear, flight, fawn, or freeze response. There's this, and that's what amygdala is for. And that being around a narcissist, it's going to enlarge the amygdala. So you have an imbalance there, where it's harder to think about things. It's harder to keep a short-term memory about things, because you're constantly just in a survival state. So the amygdala, as starts shrinking down, it might, trigger something. And then that's where the CPTSD comes from. Because if you look at it from a brain perspective, the amygdala itself, it's kind of like a thing where if it gets so big and enlarged, as it starts shrinking, it might go, wait a minute, I'm needed, and it could just reflexively kick something off. Which is why after a while, all of a sudden, you could have a CPTSD attack out of nowhere. Because all of this, I have researched this thing to death. I have researched everything I could get my hands on, and so what happens is just kind of like sometimes like you might get itchy, or sometimes like if you're in bed, maybe your foot kicks a little bit, just reflexively it happens. And so your amygdala, because it's so big, it has a lot more control. If it was smaller and it did that, it's not as bad. And so that's partially why you need to be in a good environment with good people. You need to get the hell away from the toxic people.
Well, or just as we always say, no contact. That's the first
Yes,
step.
yes, and
No
no
contact
contact is
is
a must.
removing the ego path from your environment is the first step, right? When you can. I've stressed that sometimes you can't. You have to go gray rock, but yeah. Go ahead and proceed.
Yep. And so again, this is because our minds are based on our brains. We know that our minds, are generated within our brains, are contained within our brains, and that when your brain gets messed with, you get messed with. That's just how it is. And so to cure yourself of CPTSD, it's very important that your amygdala and the hippocampus get back in balance again, where the hippocampus isn't getting crushed by the amygdala anymore. And that again comes with time, because it's a use it or lose it type of thing. You know, if you really work out a muscle in the gym and it starts getting bigger and stronger, right? Well, the problem is that's the amygdala now. The amygdala is big and strong, and it's too big for its own good, and it's messing with the rest of your brain. It's messing with the rest of your functions. And so, while important to have, like the amygdala is very important, the thing is it's now too big. It's too sensitive. It's too ready to go, and all that's because of the conditioning that you underwent, because of the narcissist. The narcissist did this to your amygdala. You didn't cause your amygdala to grow that big. They did it to you, to control you, to try and control it. And they don't even need to know that that's what they're doing to you. Their behavior causes your amygdala to grow. That's what happens. Their horrible behavior towards you causes changes in your brain. And the thing is, I'm willing to go even one step further here. I'm actually willing to talk about this now. I was very afraid to talk about this for a while, but the one guy that I was dealing with that was a malignant covert narcissist, I believe that his wife will die from him. I believe that her body and her multiple sclerosis that she has, it's going to kill her because of him. Her body thinks it has a virus and is eating her own body alive. Her own body is killing herself. And it's because of that fucking bastard. And this
see why not.
Sorry.
It causes all kinds of imbalances being around one. This is fascinating. This is something that you and I know. Well, actually, I haven't heard anybody talk about that connection between the amygdala and the fight or flight response and the CPTSD. That as it shrinks, it can trigger an episode, or worse, if it doesn't shrink, it can end up taking over the body's control of those functions. Wow.
Well, that's just it. And it's very scary. So there is something about there's an article that I'm going to read here called "The Victim Mimic Makes You Sick." It's becoming more and more well known that abusers cause physical sickness. Dead men tell no tales. Why do you think they try so hard to drive their victims into the ground, either to never be believed or dead, to push them to suicide? This is why everyone around them grows worse and withers away into worse. You'll find people who stick around them regress like they do in a cult. There are no healthy, wise men or women to be found. Victim mimics are out to poison the good, the right, the strength out of everything and everyone. It's a fact that stress has caused autoimmune disorders that includes multiple sclerosis. It's a fact narcissists, including the covert aggressors known as victim mimics, cause extreme stress. So we can, beyond a shadow of a doubt, conclude they will make you sick because they can cause you extreme, prolonged stress, which is going to enlarge your amygdala, among other horrible things. And a poisoner is just as interested. Yet a poisoner is just as interested in your health as a healer, but they're interested in your health getting worse. Victim mimics are not healers, but they are poisoners. It's what they are. It's what they do. And this is something that I was very much careful about revealing what I suspected, because I wanted to have enough research done before making this fact, making this claim.
Well, it makes
this person
sense.
is married.
If you always have the fear hormone pulsing through your body, it's going to have an effect. I mean, absolutely. Of course, the narcopath or egopath will make you sick physically if you stay around them enough or long enough.
Yes, and so this gets very scary, but I'm going to say it because I truly believe it, and I've done my research on this. This isn't just a I don't like narcissists, so I'm going to say they make people sick. They're evil and they're doing this horrible shit and they're causing sickness, actual sickness. And so what happens is there's a person who's living with a covert narcissist, and they have an autoimmune disease, multiple sclerosis, which can be triggered from stress, which guess what the narcissist can do? Cause you stress. And so if if here's the thing, the narcissist is guilty because if I gave some person cancer and they died from it years later, it really wouldn't matter if I was nice to them here or there. The simple fact is I killed them slowly. The damage was done, events were set in motion, and I was entirely responsible for it. Same thing goes with narcissists causing stress-related illnesses. They are 100% at fault, guilty up to and including murder. Narcissists, abuse, and trauma survivors.
Yeah, I think to add to that, a lot of these people that think that they're, and I know that you can obviously become a drug addict or an alcoholic, but I think a lot of these people that think they are actually abuse victims. I think that they're obviously we're talking about physical symptoms. There's physical symptoms with that, but psychological as well. A lot of those folks, if they'd gotten away from their egopath families or spouses, they probably wouldn't have abused substances the way they did or do.
Well, that's just it. When they mess with your perspective and mess with your mind and mess with your actual brain and cause you to make it literally, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to control your mind and control your brain, because that's just it. They can bypass all your logic if they can make you angry anytime they want, because you're not going to think as well when you're angry. You're going to react a lot more when you're angry. So that's what they try and do to control you. And so, yeah, narcissist abuse and trauma survivors are often diagnosed with chronic pain and autoimmune disorders because long-term exposure to cortisol and adrenaline, fight or flight chemicals, again, that's the amygdala, cause inflammation in our bodies. Inflammation causes pain, or worse, it causes our immune system to attack itself because it thinks the inflammation is caused by a disease it needs to eradicate. Bobby Parrish, M.A. That's his quote, and I believe every word of it, every word of it.
Yeah, I do too. It makes complete and perfect sense. I mean, you've
more.
let this out in a way that previously I haven't heard before. This is very interesting. Very interesting. Please do go on.
Yeah, and then here's another quote, and these are some people that I've come to, I respect this person, Maria Consiglio or something, I can't pronounce her last name, but I respect her for this one. Narcissistic abuse is deadly, and I don't mean only in instances where there is domestic violence. Emotional manipulation has dire consequences for victims. It can greatly affect their mental and physical health. It changes who they are and minimizes their potential. Extreme trauma can even cause brain damage and various other physical and mental abnormalities. This is not a joke, and it is far more dangerous than people acknowledge. Some people develop extensive chronic physical ailments and/or mental health issues. It also negatively impacts a person's day-to-day functioning. It's not just wrong, it's a damn crime what these people go through. If you are a victim, I am talking to you. Go no contact and save your life.
Yeah, a lot of what they do, their behavior, if it was actually exhibited in a court, or if it was in a corporation, it is illegal. It is a crime for what they do. It's just not a crime when it's on a personal level. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. They're getting away with it, and not as much anymore because people are putting a stop to it. People like you and me are figuring this shit out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's here's another one. I said
the last conversation when I said, "Oh, our what am I trying to say? Having like the phone, the video camera on the phone, that'll make someone behave really, really quick." Actually, some of the times it actually doesn't. I've pulled out my phone and started to record someone, and they just continue. They just double down. So you never know with the narcopath, right?
Yeah, it's whatever is most comfortable at the time to them. That's how they operate.
Right, exactly.
And so for this here's another one. They say that emotional abuse doesn't have physical signs, but what about anxiety, depression, digestive problems, headaches, heart disease, sleep problems, weight gain, memory and concentration, impairment that results from too much cortisol, again, controlled by the amygdala, something that they enlarge from their abuse that they do to you. And I have some survivors' personal testimony that they posted. So this is from actual other people here. Constantly activated region of the brain called the amygdala triggers HPA axis, which triggers a constant release of cortisol, which, to put it colloquially, fries your organs over time. It also causes confusion because anxiety shuts down your executive function.
Wow.
Here's another one. Here's another one. Donna Eller. Cortisol, generic hydrocortisone, is adrenaline. It is only called adrenaline because the response, fight or flight, is produced by your adrenal glands, which are tiny little things that sit one on top of each kidney. My adrenal system completely shut down about 2 years ago, so that would have maybe 5 years of being in hell with a narc psychopath. You really do not know the damage low cortisol can do until your body runs out of it. What will the unsustainable amounts of cortisol caused by narcissistic abuse do to you? Here's another one. Daniel Dynap. Keep your cortisol levels elevated. Keeps your cortisol levels elevated, working your adrenals into complete exhaustion. Your body begins to hurt in several places. Mine was in my head, constant migraines, and lower back. I was always sick and had zero immune system to ward off colds, etc. I missed an excessive amount of work because of migraines, flu, sinus infection, etc. I also suffer from autoimmune disorders, which my dose of medication is extremely high for my age. It was found after leaving my ex-narc. My adrenals were so deficient. Certain vitamins were also deficient despite taking high doses daily of a quality vitamin brand. And I suffered from dormant autoimmune illnesses because of the prolonged stresses my body was put under. The end result of surviving the narc and all the years of abuse is your body and mind both suffer. Years of cortisol and being on edge takes its toll on the body on a lot of ways. Mainly, you are exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. Your body needs rest. Your arms and legs need rest. Your soul needs rest. And your insides need a lot of care because of the trauma you just survived.
Oh my God.
Cortisol stimulates and here's where it gets even better. Cortisol stimulates the amygdala while it impairs the hippocampus. The amygdala itself can literally make sure that the hippocampus stays small. The amygdala itself, because when the amygdala starts shrinking, it might kick off something and then it can grow big again. Because that's what cells on that they do. They like to repair themselves. So what happens when you have a bunch of muscle and you start losing muscle, it goes, hey, I need to repair myself. Mm-hmm. Then it leaches out the cortisol for you.
Well, I got a question for you, if you don't mind. The hippocampus, obviously, you touched on that, so we know what the function is. The amygdala, what is you say that it sounds like they're kind of battling each other. What is the function of the amygdala that it's trying to squelch out?
You bet it. So the hippocampus is about learning and memory and being able to adapt to things. The amygdala is reaction. Amygdala is all about, there's a predator in front of me. What do? Do I run away? Do I fight it? Do I pretend to be dead? Do I lie down, pretend to be dead? Do I just freeze, not knowing what to do? That's the amygdala.
Okay.
The hippocampus is the more human part of you. The more, well, let's think about this. Let's make some choices together. Let's really talk about this. There's no talking with a wild animal that wants to rip you apart. And that's really what the narcissist becomes to your brain. The narcissist triggers that response in you, but you don't know what it is. And you just go and it causes your brain to go into overdrive. And it's all thanks to them, all thanks to the narcissist and the abuse they inflict on you. And so,
believe it.
And here's another one.
A lot of us have lived through this. I'm just glad that we're getting an explanation now, finally, and hopefully enough people will hear what you have discovered and put together for us. Go ahead.
Yep. And so here's something that's very important. Sick is a condition. Evil is a behavior. Sickness is the absence of choice. Evil is always a matter of choice. Sickness happens. Evil is inflicted. And what happens is you become sick because they are evil. It sounds impossible. It sounds like, no, only if someone had a cold or something could I get a cold. No one can make me sick if they're not sick. But they can, and they do, because this is how they do it. And there's been enough evidence now of it to prove it. And so in the limbic system, there's the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is in charge of emergency responses, anxiety and fear. When you've been through many kinds of these emotional situations, thanks to the narcissist, the amygdala gets enlarged with nerve connections. And then it's like a light switch or anxiety switch where it's permanently on because it always has to be active. It always has to be working because there's always something coming your way, always something hitting you because they always do that constant It's constant damage to you.
Right.
Death
Let
by
me
1,000
expand that.
cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts. Let me expand your thoughts on that from the personal to the social for just a second. When the folks that are, and I'm giving you the air quotes, are currently in charge or influencing, are sending out messages via whether it's audio or video or commercials or what you see on the television, they are playing with our minds. They are causing that in mass. The same thing. This is the microcosm and the macrocosm are almost identical to each other. When you see your personal lives and the folks that have been influenced by this or have been damaged by it, then you look at the big picture, it's exactly the same.
That's right. I agree. And here's the next part. The hippocampus is in charge of converting short-term to long-term memory. The hippocampus ends up shrinking because the amygdala gets bigger. So the hippocampus has to shrink. And then when it shrinks, what happens is you get amnesia, where your brain is unable to retain information and deletes information so that you can survive. This is why you may forget a lot of things that happened, why you can't remember where you put your keys.
But yeah, I've experienced that firsthand under that kind of stress, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, where when you are under stress, whether it's from a narcissist or not, you don't have your memory is definitely compromised. But they do it in such a way that it is evil. I'm sorry, continue. We lost our connection there for just a second. Go ahead and continue.
Okay, good. Am I back?
You are.
Okay. Then yes. Okay, perfect. So yes, the problem is you end up forgetting things, which makes it worse, which makes it easier for them to gaslight you. Because then you don't remember what happened and they remember what happened and they look for those gaps where you can't remember things and they put in whatever narrative they want. And guess what? You're always the bad person. This is what they do. It's strategic and they do it on purpose. They know it. They know what they're doing. You might even forget some of your childhood memories if you grew up in one of these abusive situations. If you had it constantly throughout your childhood, there's a lot of things that you might not be able to do because you have been constantly attacked by these bastards. And that explains a lot why people would go to drugs or something, because they just are having a really bad time. A really bad time. So yeah, it's actually called the amygdala hijack. So imagine that you see a zombie in front of you. Well, that immediately triggers a panic situation. And so there is one solution to that: alcohol. Alcohol will actually dampen the amygdala so that the amygdala, even though it's running, the signals aren't going to get through as badly anymore. So just like you said, it's a coping mechanism where someone will drink alcohol so that their amygdala isn't destroying them, because they will feel better. They will actually feel better because their amygdala isn't hurting them anymore. And so, yeah, the amygdala is able to do things to you, but alcohol gets in the way of what the amygdala is doing. But the problem is you need that amygdala to shrink down. Yes, the amygdala is important. It's definitely an important part of the brain, but when it gets too big, that's when that's when you become easy prey for the narcissist, and it's bad, real bad. And I cannot overstate how deadly and pure evil this makes them. To zombify a decent human being into this reactive thing that is in constant pain is nothing less than pure evil. This is what these parasitic monsters do. That's why they're parasitic monsters. They zombify you and try to destroy you. And there's someone else's testimony here. And this is going to be this is hard hitting, and I believe it. I believe this stuff. As I continued to deal with the narcissist, I found myself getting sicker and sicker. Eventually, one of my tonsils was swollen and hurt so much, it simply wouldn't get better no matter what I did. I went to the doctor, and she couldn't find anything wrong with me in terms of disease or infection, yet I was perpetually ill. Literally days after leaving the narcissist, my sore throat started to get better. Within a week, it was gone. I started to feel and look so much healthier. Just like you said, Tier, when the narcissist goes away, the problems go away. And here we go. It is stunning how it is. Yep, it is stunning how dealing with a narcissist can absolutely destroy your physical health. It can come on slowly, but before you know it, you're chronically sick. Here's another one. Yes, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt bad all the time. Besides, I was running myself ragged trying to please him when he wasn't satisfied with anything. Yes, it can make you sick living with a narcissist. Here's another one. You're the one who's been a walking deathbed beat around any of these manipulative jerks. They throw all their emotional trash projection onto you instead. That's why they live so damn long, and anyone who's around these heathens dies of cancer when they're 41. Block it, stay away from all cluster Bs as they are your enemy.
I couldn't agree more. Yes, they are.
Yeah, and this was a very hard topic for me to talk about because I was in fear. If I talked about this and I couldn't back it, that's something that scared me because I was dealing with this in real life with a monster whose wife is going to die because of him. She's going to die a horrible, needless death because of him. And so I will never, ever forgive that son of a bitch.
Yeah, he is a son of a bitch, and there's no warning her, is there?
Well, I did because it was tough to be in, because that son of a bitch was my boss at work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real problem. Because that son of a bitch tried to destroy me. He tried to destroy me, make sure I could never get another job again. That fucker did it. He lied to whoever contacted him regarding any resume things, anything like that. I made sure not to have him as reference. But that son of a bitch, I could tell. Because when people ask certain questions trying to elicit confessions out of me, it's like, wow, how all the things, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you come to this scenario? And they would never answer you because they were one of the goddamn narcissist blind monkeys. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. You're evil.
Yeah, the smear campaign. That's what we call the smear campaign. He's put a lot of fake and false information out about you, or questionable, which is even worse, because you can't even refute it, and you don't know even what was said. You just know that people are looking at you sideways all the time. But when the narcissist goes away, the problems go away. People don't look at me like that anymore. I know exactly where you're going.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nasty. And that's partially. Yeah, they are. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. And it makes me so happy to know that the worst that they tried to do to me, I was able to overcome it. I was able to overcome complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Because if you really look at it back in the day, complex PTSD, even before then, right? PTSD, and even before that, if we go all the way back, George Carlin actually had it, what it was originally called. Initially, it was called shell-shocked. You had been through a lot of bad shit, and it was messing with you, shell-shocked. Then it became battle fatigue, then operational exhaustion, and it became more about the symptoms than the actual overall problem. And from operational fatigue, then slowly it became post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that evolved from that into this thing, because that's what you're dealing with. The amygdala is a very important part of your brain. It is necessary for survival, and I would consider it the more reptilian part of your brain. But the thing is, the narcissist messes with you, causes it to overload, causes it to become out of balance, out of whack, and that's what's going to mess people up. I will tell you what I saw. There was a malignant narcissist in charge of a team at work, at a workplace that I was at. This malignant narcissist caused so many health problems around him. People around him that started working for him and were still around him 10 years later, I'll tell you what happened to them. One guy became a crystal meth addict. Mm-hmm. Crystal meth, real skinny. He's probably dead now. He's probably dead. So the other guy, there was a different guy too, a real coward, a real floater in the circle of slaves, real coward. He ballooned. He ate so much food. He's eating himself to death. He's also probably dead now. These fuckers do this shit and they have zero remorse. They are going to have it their way and they will kill anyone by any means necessary. They are out to fuck you up. They are bad fucking people.
I agree. Like I said, I'd had an attempt on my life, and I couldn't believe it. Or attempts from these monsters. God.
Yep, yep, it's something. And luckily, I believe, and I've dropped again. No contact means no contact. It also means no taking a look, seeing what they're up to. Nothing. You're staying away from them completely. Completely. It's important. It's important for you to heal. When I went no contact with these evil bastards, I made sure I'm like, they are out of my life. I'm not looking at anything they're up to. I refuse to look at anything they're up to. And
If you can, I have to caution, not caution, but I have to put an addendum on this. When you are dealing with a narcissist and you are not out in the clear yet, and you cannot go no contact, when there are issues like that, maybe they are financially have some hold on you, or if you have kids with them, this is where you cannot go no contact, and so you need to be very careful. And some of the experts have since I've stated this, have since agreed with me that when you can go no contact. Before that, if you can't, I say you do need to keep some tabs. You need to study your enemy. Don't reminisce. Try not to remember the past or this person that you thought you knew. But when you can finally go no contact, do. But until then, you may have to keep so-called keep tabs on them for a while.
yeah, I agree with that. Yes, and my advice is for when you go no contact, it means no contact both ways. You're not trying to look at anything they're up to, nothing. You really need to be no contact. That, yes, until that time, because these sons of bitches, they are going to do very bad things, and it's important for you to be in the know. If they're up to shit, you need to make sure you need to protect yourself. And if you need to start calling things out and you start documenting things, which is very important, I recommend documenting things, making emails, making videos. If you have to whip out a phone in front of them and start recording them, and then all of a sudden they stop abusing and everyone around is just nice and silent,
Right.
they're in on it.
Saying earlier,
They're fucking in on it.
They're exactly, with the digital age where people have video capability on every phone, it will make someone behave very quickly, and it also exposes them for their behavior. This is something that's at least on our side, maybe why they're becoming exposed now is because of technology. I know that the internet
That's right.
has given us information on a plethora of ideas, and this is one of them. That these things are crumbling. They're gonna lose. Okay, they're gonna lose eventually. They're gonna lose the grip. Right now, all of the society, all of our social systems are in their grip, which gives the go ahead for your personal narcissist to do what they do. There was a time when they didn't have that kind of permission, and right now they do. But like you said, if you pull your phone out, you start documenting what they say, suddenly things change, and suddenly you've got some material against them, or else some of them just continue. Like I said, some will double down, but nevertheless, you have the information.
And that's fine if they do, because if you can get them, if you can catch them on tape and they're doing horrible shit thinking they're still God, you've got them. And then you've got something to fucking hit them with.
Look
and
at my
that is
past
so important,
videos.
and you need that.
The ones where I took the phone out. It was too late on the ones that had poisoned me. I didn't understand what I was dealing with at the time, and I was trying to go no contact with them. But when I started to wake up that they were all in cahoots with each other, that's when the phone came out. I wish I'd gotten it before, but the story's still there nevertheless.
Yeah, well, partially, but the reason the phone didn't come out sooner is you didn't know what you were dealing with. You had no idea what kind of fucking monsters they were. That's really the reality.
I didn't even know I'd been poisoned at the time. It took a half a dozen people to convince me that was even true. I was gaslighted into bliss. I had no idea what I was dealing with. Zero idea. None.
Man, it's something. And here's something. Here's some symptoms here. And let me know how many you've experienced because of the narcissist here. Okay. Loss of hearing, right? They may be like shell shock. You know when some people get shell shocked or they start hearing the gulp, right? They start hearing some noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of them.
Maybe tinnitus or tinnitus, maybe. I don't know. That could be a symptom.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Here's another one. Dilation of pupils, right? Fear. Maybe your body starts reacting. You start being able to process more because you're in survival mode. So dilation of pupils. Loss of peripheral vision. You're afraid of the danger right in front of you. It's harder to think about other things around you because you're so focused on one thing.
Yep.
Increased heart rate.
Yes.
Loss of bowel control, loss of bladder control, increased blood flow to the muscles, increased glucose and fatty acid levels. Time appears to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things is because of the narcissist triggering the amygdala. All of these things, they're causing this in you. And the problem is a lot of this stuff persists, that CPTSD persists because of the amygdala. Because when the narcissist goes away, your amygdala doesn't just immediately shrink. It doesn't just go immediately, okay, the threat's gone, we're good now. But the amygdala,
Oh no,
amygdala.
Yeah, I still have those episodes. They're shorter and less frequent, but it's a psychotic break. It's a literal psychotic break where suddenly every single thing, and nothing has changed. If you take inventory of your life, it's all exactly the same as it was 10 minutes ago or yesterday. But yeah, they when the episode happens, it's like night and day, and it still happens. But it's at least it's less, like I said, less frequent and not as long. It takes time. This is what so sucks about it, is that time heals all, and you have to take time, go no contact when you can, and eventually, what you're telling us, the physical side of this, of the amygdala, will finally shrink, but not until you can go no contact and get into a better
That is
environment.
correct.
Yeah, well, do what we got to do, right? So.
Yes, but it is important to understand the amygdala. When the amygdala goes back to normal, right? Even if it's going to try and trigger stuff, it'll be a lot less severe. The severity of CPTSD episodes, how bad the psychotic break is literally a one-to-one on how big your amygdala is. It's a one-to-one. If you have an enlarged amygdala, the psychotic break or the CPTSD episode, it will be very severe. But as your amygdala shrinks back down and you're feeling good and normal again, you'll be able to control it and handle it, and eventually you won't even get those episodes anymore. You might get like a sudden feeling of fear or something like that, but it'll be so less severe. If you get a sudden feeling of fear or something because of the amygdala, but you're not, all of a sudden having a psychotic break because of it, congrats, your amygdala is manageable. You've got an
amygdala
that's under control now. That's a good thing.
Can you say that again?
Say
that again for everyone. That was important. I'd like to say it again.
Thank you. Yes. So the amygdala, when it's enlarged, it's directly proportional to how much of a psychotic break you're going to have from CPTSD. Your complex PTSD within the large amygdala is really bad. But when the amygdala shrinks down, and it sends out that signal again, or sends out the cortisol again, and you maybe feel fear, but you're not having a psychotic break anymore, that's when you know your amygdala is manageable again, that it shrunk down. That's very important. It's a one-to-one. The bigger your amygdala is, the more severe the psychotic break is from a complex PTSD episode, from a complex PTSD attack, where all of a sudden it's just things have gotten real bad because the amygdala has gone into full gear. And so getting away from that and letting the amygdala shrink down and practicing, and what I found that helped, and this is my nature of how I like to do things. I found that playing simple puzzle games started helping me, and I started just looking for games that could help me, even Scrabble or just simple, like, enter in the word for like a crossword puzzle, just simple things like that, simple things to help with the memory just a little bit. And that kept the balance for me, and I got my balance back on that, and that's very important. I can't fully explain why I felt like it was quicksand, Why I felt like when I was all of a sudden having a CPTSD episode, it's like I was falling. I can't quite explain that one, but I have a feeling it's something to do with the amygdala, with my amygdala being enlarged. I have a feeling it was doing something, and something was telling me that that the falling thing with the amygdala, it was pressing on something and triggering it too. That's what I think. That's the physical aspect of it. That's the physical aspect. And that part needs to be healed. But you need to understand that's why that happens. Because it's important to identify where these symptoms are coming from. Because if you know that's that part of it, it becomes a lot more manageable. It becomes a lot more okay if it's happening because of the amygdala being too big. So I'll work on just living a more peaceful life, getting away from these bastards. And I feel sorry for anyone that can't, because there are times where I had to endure, and that's why I had such a severe version of it. My entire family was depending on me. I was the lone person going into work, and there was a covert narcissist there, always trying to destroy me. And for years, I had to put up with their fucking bullshit for years, and that affected me. And it was very tempting. I was in a very dark place at one point, and I was very close to taking matters into my own hands and making sure that fucker never hurt anyone again.
Right. I know. I think there's a lot of people speaking of that, and of course, we're not advocating anything like this, but I think there are people that end up on just say like death row or something, or for murder, because they've been abused, because they're going to take matters into their own hands because of what the narcopath did. I think there's more of that than we realize.
That's exactly it. And they wind you up, right? They wind you up, and then off you go, right? They set you up to fail. They absolutely do.
They do.
They
enjoy it too. That's what's so sad about it. They enjoy this entire game that you're talking about. Every bit of this brings them happiness. That's what's so messed up about it. Well, one of the things that's so messed up.
That's just it. Yeah, it's true. And the thing is, their happiness comes from the loss of others, because they're such a parasite. The parasite mentality, because they can cling on to their false duality. Their false duality is, if you're losing, I must be winning. So as long as I keep causing you loss, well, I'm winning. It doesn't even occur to them that you've actually just fucked over a good person.
Right. It's just a zero-sum game with them. If you're losing, they must win. That's just the way it is. It's a very odd way of behavior. It's wired somewhat backwards, and unfortunately, we are the ones that pay the price. They don't.
Oh, yes, actually, to add Rand's little thing about things being a mockery, the victim mimic is basically a sick joke at the real victim's expense. That's what it always comes down to with these narcissists. It becomes a sick joke at the victim's expense. It becomes a mockery at the victim's expense. And that's what they are.
I'm not going to go too far into it, but it just kind of reminds me of something. I wonder what group of people you can mock the most today, and I wonder who you can't criticize. Everyone just think about that for a minute, and you might get some perspective on what's happening on Earth today. Am I right, or am I right?
You are right. It's very unfortunate, but right now there are problems, and getting rid of that one group of people. Here's the problem. Even getting rid of, if we could right now today just have some kind of super I don't even know what you would call it, but just some kind of super extinction event where all narcissists would just drop dead. The problem is, while in the short term, that would be great, the problem is they're just going to come back. There's just going to be more of them, because when you have more humans and with more personalities, there's going to be people that want to be parasites. They want to be a parasite, and they're going to end up like that.
I agree. It's not always even the same group of people, even throughout history. There's different kinds of parasites through thousands of years, if you will. So, yeah, but I agree. Even if you did get rid of all of them, you can get rid of all the rats, and they're going to breed again and come back, and here we go. It's a symptom of life, I guess. So.
Well, that's just it. Because for them, they see a lot of reason to do it. There's a lot more incentive to do it when they're the only parasite, and everyone else is a nice, big, juicy host with lots of energy to deplete. All of that narcissistic ego stroking. Everyone could be their slave. No competition.
It kind of
Very
makes
incentivizing for them.
Yeah, it is, and it's satisfying, and it kind of makes you wonder who the model was for Dracula. You know, who is this guy? These people that enjoy sucking the blood, and they can't see their own reflection, and it only takes a wooden stake through the heart to. It's almost exactly the same as the narcissist. The narcissist cannot see their own reflection, and they feed on other people. That's a vampire.
Yep, that's exactly it. They are a demonic and soul-sucking vampire. They really are. That's succubus.
Right. So do go on. Yeah, they are. Do go on. What's did you about the amygdala and this was probably the most fascinating thing that I've heard, in a really long time about you tying that together in the physical attributes to being around a narcissist. Can you add anything else to what you were talking about?
Yeah. So the amygdala, right? That was a very big, important part. I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover on that. It's important to realize that there is cause and effect in the brain. Your brain is literally designed for your survival. And the problem is there are ways to mess with that and exploit certain features of the brain to cause the brain to act in certain ways that are counterintuitive and are actually counterproductive to your survival. And the amygdala getting too big is an example of that. The amygdala is just doing its job. It really is. But as it shrinks, sometimes it can misfire or whatever. And, it just kicks off something, goes, oh, I'm tinier than before, maybe I just need to trigger something, or maybe some cortisol gets released, and that creates that feedback loop. Because if the cortisol gets released and then you get hit into that CPTSD episode, all of a sudden your amygdala starts getting fed. It starts going, quick, we need more amygdala. We need more amygdala again. And that's a problem, right? So battling that and being able to postpone it as long as you can between complex PTSD attacks, postponing it as long as you can actually will keep helping, because the amygdala will keep shrinking down and it becomes more and more manageable. And at times I really...
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Charlie, talk.
I was going to ask, you had some other suggestions, and this is kind of important. I'd like to touch on it again. To get the amygdala to shrink down, you were using like puzzles. You were puzzle games. Is that right? You were telling me that a little bit ago.
Yes. And so there's reasons why to find a hobby and stuff, something that you find relaxing. There's a reason I didn't say, I wanted to play a video game that has lots of bright lights, or go to a casino with lots of lights and flashing lights and sounds, or go to an arcade with like big booming sounds, or go to a rave, a big dance party, boom, boom, boom. Like there's a reason for that, right? You want to do calming activities that require the least amount of amygdala, because when you have an enlarged amygdala, that baby is ready to go. It's ready to rock and roll. It's ready to say, let's get that knife. Let's cut that narcissist's throat. Let's dance on their dead corpse. That's the direction that the amygdala is pushing for. That's the reptilian brain, right? I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to run away. I'm ready to fawn and stick that up if needed. I'm ready to freeze. But you know what I mean? Like, that's the amygdala. That's what it's about. So
you mentioned the Scrabble or getting a calm hobby. That's obviously in between the episodes. Do you have any insight or suggestions about when the episode begins?
That's tough. I've had it both ways, because I couldn't predict it. That was one of my biggest problems. I couldn't predict when it was going to happen, because the amygdala itself, right? You don't really know how big your amygdala is. You just know how severe your complex PTSD episodes are. So the problem is when the amygdala starts, either misfires or whatever, right? When it's shrinking down, it just reflexively kicks off something, or cortisol gets released as it's shrinking. It can't hold as much, so it just leaks out. But it's enough to trigger that whole loop again. That is hard to do. But I have found that preemptive maintenance does help. So exercise is very important. You'll notice this with anyone worth their salt in a sort of health field. They'll say exercise is important. Even just walking the dog, just doing constant exercise, being in motion. Don't let yourself be still, be in motion. There's a time to be calm and at peace, but then when you're ready to do exercise, get in motion, get moving, get the blood pumping, get feeling good, get that body feeling good. And the amygdala, right? It's gonna do whatever it does, but when you do that and you have all these feel-good chemicals, it can offset it, because taking alcohol is a problem. Because alcohol, well, it can temporarily relieve the symptoms. Well, one, it could be addictive. And number two, alcohol actually worsens your overall body. So it's a trade-off. It's temporarily relief for long-term pain. And that's the problem there.
So physical exercise, and obviously a calm hobby, are two things that we can do to at least manage while the amygdala is trying to shrink back down to normal after we've gone no contact.
Yes, I mean, that's just that you will not be able to do those things while the narcissist is in your life. They will be trying to destroy you. Chances are they'll be trying to destroy you, because by the time he knows it, it's pretty bad. And once you're in the know and you know about these fuckers, you spat them really quick and you get rid of them real fucking quick. And because of that, then that's something that keeps your amygdala nice and in check, because that's something not to worry about. But I want you to know that this is a natural response. We're getting a CPTSD, severe CPTSD. It doesn't just happen to some people. It could literally happen to every single human brain on this planet. It could literally happen to anyone, because that's what the amygdala does. That's the purpose of it. Only someone born without an amygdala would be dead. But I wouldn't even know if there'd even be a human being capable of anything. The amygdala is a very important part of our psyche. And so it's not something that should be seen as a bad thing. What needs to be seen as the bad thing is that it becomes disproportionate. It's out of balance. It needs to become less. It doesn't mean it's not going to be doing its job. It's just it needs to be less.
Agreed.
And yeah.
I was agreeing with you. Yeah, it definitely needs to be less, because if you've ever suffered through CPTSD, it's a bear. It's a monster all its own, because it is telling me fight or flight, and I don't usually flight. The stuff I want to do will probably land me somewhere where I don't want to be. So it's telling me things that aren't true, because of having to be around the narcopath. They leave you with the present. Didn't that great? They leave you with that. The sons of bitches leave you with CPTSD and an enlarged amygdala. Thank you for the present, narcopath.
Yeah, it's just the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
It does. Well, and also too, that those of us who have been through family court, that they're watching, they're waiting for you to make a mistake. They're trying to, so you're on constant alert all the time. I've mentioned a couple of times where I thought that everything was going to be, just peachy keen when my my youngest son had turned 18, because then I could delete her completely from my life, even though we were no contact and not engaging really even at all last few years after she lost custody of him. And I had my worst CPTSD after he was emancipated from the family court system. And it lasted forever. It seemed like it lasted forever at the time. And so I maybe that was the amygdala actually shrinking. I don't know, but it was very like you said, you don't know when to expect it. It doesn't pick a time. It seems to be very random when it happens. But the last one really bad. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. Actually, what you just said there, when it felt like it lasted forever, well, that's one of the symptoms. Time appears to slow down. That's a sign of the amygdala being active. Yep. So what happened is your amygdala was enlarged.
Mm-hmm.
Your amygdala was enlarged, and then then right as it slowly starts coming back to normal, sometimes you'll just leak out some cortisol, but then that can trigger that whole loop, because then all of a sudden your mind is trying to identify the threat, and it can't because there is no threat. Right? You're in a good place.
There you go. We're touching on something very important. What you're saying. I'm learning a lot today. This has been an amazing conversation, and I'm gonna push this out as far as I can to everyone. I didn't have any idea that the cortisol or the adrenaline or cortisol, I guess, from the amygdala is leaking out. It just doesn't, because I'm sitting there. Nothing is different. Everything's the same. And to be perfectly honest with everyone, my life's pretty good. I mean, I've worked hard to make it. It's pretty polished up, you know. So nothing's really gone wrong, but somehow that would happen. So now I have the answer. You've told. Thank you. You've told me the answer to this today. Very important. God, I hope everybody listens to this. Please do go on.
Yep, and I know I might seem extreme on some stuff, but this is stuff that I have come to the conclusion on. I will not deviate from these conclusions. I have truly come to these conclusions. So yeah, it's something, and I would say that the amygdala, again, it's not your enemy, but it just simply got overloaded, just because, again, the narcissist did their abuse, caused changes in your brain, because your brain's trying to survive. There's a new threat going on. It can't identify what it is, so the brain's adapting, trying to figure out what it is. And now that amygdala gets nice and big, goes, well, I'll just react quicker. Maybe I just need to react quicker. Just react quicker. But then that's where the fuck up occurs.
And there's no threat. Not now. Not at least
that's right.
Or at least what we're talking about now, the threat is gone, and it continues to react. So you don't know where to turn, and so people make really bad decisions during these episodes. It's hard. It's really hard to know. You don't know when they're going to happen. The mystery is you don't know when they're going to happen, and when they do happen, you don't know how long it's going to last. Mine used to last for about a week. It finally went down to about 3 days, then about 2 days, and sometimes I'll have a day that just doesn't feel right. So I might be on my way there, but yeah, it still happens. And I don't mind sharing this with the people on the channel, because this is what I've done for the last 6, I guess almost 7 years now, is discussing this. And because I've been through it, that's probably my best, at least my best take on it personal. I wish I was able to articulate it as well as some folks have done, especially what you've done here. It's just, God, it's mind-blowing, amazing what you've put together here. We so appreciate it. Please go on.
Yes, well, thank you. And I mean, it's, again, I did a lot of research on this stuff to figure out, okay, what exactly, because I had a very vested interest in getting the cure to CPTSD since I had it myself. So I was very vested in having an actual cure and knowing what the hell happened, so that I could, prevent it again from happening. Because yes, a big part of it is get that narcissist the fuck out of your life. That's a big part of it. That's a very, very big part of it. There is lots of hope for people. And yes, I would say my life is going very, very good. I've been able to achieve a lot of things, and it is definitely, I've been able to work with fantastic colleagues now. None of them are narcissists, which is fantastic. There's some people there that would be easily motivated into flying monkeys. So it's something for me to be aware of, but not something for me to be worried about. If it's really that bad, I'll get the hell out before it gets really bad. I will get the hell out. I will abandon the shit out of any workplace that starts becoming toxic, and because nothing kills a good employee faster than tolerating a bad one. Nothing. And allowing the narcissist to reign supreme.
Well, also too, one thing I've noticed, that since the complete no contact, well, it's been before, since complete no contact, let's say the ramping up of the change of personality, is that the narcopaths aren't really interested in talking to me anymore. I've noticed that they shy away from it. If you're the kind of person that has that personality that doesn't understand what they do, it's like a moth to a flame. They know. But they also know when you're not going to play their game. And I find now that they don't, that there's just not as many around me anymore. I don't think
That,
we don't mesh like we used to. Let's put it that way.
well, that's just it, because you won't put up with the bullshit. They'll put out their little tests. They'll try little tests on you, see about nibbling, see what they can nibble, because that's what some fish do. You know, you put a hook in the water, instead of just biting the hook with the bait, they'll nibble it a little bit first, just to see, just nibble a little bit. And so sometimes they try nibbling, and I'll shut that shit down right off the bat. If I think someone is up to no good, I'll call them out on it. And I won't necessarily accuse them of it outright, but I'll be like, how do I know you're not just doing this right now with this in mind? And then they get scared because I'm not accusing them, but I'm literally pointing out, I know exactly what you're up to, fucker.
Well, one of the tools that I currently am using with one that is a narcopath that I'm having to do some business with is that when they tell me something about a third party, I instantly text them and the third party at the same time and ask them if it's true, just right there in front of them. And not no, 10 times out of 10, it's all been false. And they stop fucking with me about it. Stop telling me nonsense about people that it's not true. If you say something about me this or that, I text the whole thing and it exposes them like extremely quickly. Thankfully, I have contracts with them and they can't really get out of them. So we're not employees, but I actually own part of the company. So they found out that they really can't pull that shit with me. So it's beautiful, you know,
Good,
exposing.
good. Oh my God, that,
Yeah.
oh,
And I
it's
didn't know
so
what we were
important.
doing before. I had no idea what we were doing because when somebody would tell me before, well, so and so said this, and if it doesn't make any sense, I go, well, let me clarify. So I would go to so and so now and say, is this what you said? Is this the message that I'm receiving? No, that's completely backwards. I never said that. So I started making sure that I did it right there in front of everybody. Call them on the carpet in front of everyone. They'll stop that shit real quick. People say that you can't change a narcissist's behavior. Bullshit. You can change a narcissist. You can't change them, but you can change their behavior. I guarantee you that. And exposure is a great way to do it. That's why I love the video function on my cell phone. It's been a literal lifesaver for me actually.
Yeah, and I agree. And you know what? It was one of the things they wanted me to stop doing. When I was at work and I got tired of the horrible shit that was happening to me, I pulled out my phone, started recording. They all got scared, and then they tried to cry and complain to the twisted son of a bitch. And then he tried to get me to stop using my phone, get me to say, "Oh, I'll stop trying to record if I'm getting abused."
Well, yeah. Why do you
Try to
think?
get me to do that.
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of these government agencies and cops don't want you to film anymore? Well,
Exactly.
the reason is they don't want you. They don't want to get caught. They've even tried to make laws against filming law enforcement. Yeah. Well, I think that we're going to ignore that. That's a law that I won't respect. I will film you if I think you're gaslighting me, if I think you're lying to me, if you're trying to manipulate me, and I will turn out and just document the whole thing. I love it. I love it.
Yep, and it's so important. It's so important to do.
Well, like I said, I just think the technology is in our favor now because, you know, it makes people behave. You know, so anyway, continue.
Yep. Luckily, I don't have too much to say about this. You know, honestly, this is ending on a really happy note because I think for survivors out there that really don't know what's going on, because they, you know what I mean? Like they're experiencing CPTSD, well, the ones that have had it real bad. For those that don't have it, good for you. You got out in time. Good for you. But for the ones that have had CPTSD or are struggling with it and not knowing what the hell is going on, I want you to know that it is possible to be cured from it completely. And it is a massive relief. Just healing that and knowing that it's so important. So I want you guys to know that this is curable, that this is a thing. And these evil bastards really don't deserve to be a part of your life. They really don't.
Right, and at the very end of the discard of that monster that I was with, I was in complete despair, which was it was the amygdala. I'm sure completely oversized from years of just toxic nonsense. And I want to kind of mention to everybody else that, I was at the end. I was at the end of my rope, and it was very serious at that time. And I thought to myself, if you do that now, you don't get to see how it turns out. And so, if you're at that end, understand that going no contact when you can. If you can't go no contact, you have channels like these, people like us, and people who have been through it that you can heal from it, just like our guest is talking about. And it is going to take time, but just rest assured that it's going to get better and better. I honestly, I have to tell you this, and I'm not bragging, but my life actually gets better every day. And except when I'm having those episodes, and those are, like I said, getting far and few between. So I guess you could say that's a positive thing. That's a ramp up too. So yeah, just know that if you're in that state of mind, that is the amygdala playing tricks on you, and is not the truth. It's not reality, and it's hard to recognize it, even for me, years and years later, and it does seem like forever. So, um, man, I wish everyone the best, and I thank this guest so much. You have no idea. God, you have no idea, man. You laid out stuff so clear. I want to see that. I want to see this go far and wide. There's not a lot of people that are watching me anymore, but man, I'm going to see if I can put some links to this so that other folks get to benefit from the study that you've done. Amazing amount of work, just absolute clarity. And I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt, guest, but this is groundbreaking and finalization of a big problem. So anyhow, with that being said, guest, do you have anything else that you'd like to throw out there before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's the best way to end the episode. Thank you.
I think so too. We do appreciate you. This has been some of the best, promise again, some of the best information that I've ever heard, and I cannot wait to see what the response is like and see how many people can get things turned around and get away from their abusers. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody again for joining me. Uh, you can email me at tierravenson@outlook.com. I'll put it on the screen. And I hope to see y'all again real soon. Can you hang the line for just a minute, guest?